Hey everyone, it's Lisa here. I just wanted to talk a little bit about IFS or internal family systems, otherwise known as parts work. Um, I find this really, really fascinating. There, I, gue- I guess I want to begin with saying that I'm just beginning to explore IFS. It is something that I have always resonated with on a deep level as far as the idea that we contain so many different aspects or parts of ourselves, right? Like there's I guess maybe one of the first introductions to this whole concept that I can recall is like the reparenting work that I've done over the years and accessing the inner child and understanding that there's like these parts of us that or the inner critic, or feeling like imposter syndrome, for example. Um, and also feeling like these strong internal conflicts, right? And the experience of doing shadow work, for example, like the unconscious part. And archetypes are so huge in my life, and I think it's a a universal thing, but I've always been drawn to the work of using archetypes in life because I feel like it's so useful to understand that there are these energy patterns that we um sort of like they're almost like these grids too that we can activate within our system and then like deactivate to some degree. So, like the archetypes could also, be considered parts of us. And we all have, we all sort of play out different patterns or archetypal themes in our lives. So, in the bringing in IFS, internal family systems, that it's this concept from what I'm learning, I'm just trying to assimilate this sort of information and my own experience by speaking about it and sharing about it because that's what I love to do. So, in my scratching the surface of the exploration of parts work, I have come to understand that there's different like categories of parts. So there is what is called exiles. They're the parts of us that we exile, like we lock away in a metaphorical basement of our brain or our psyche. These are our parts that are vulnerable, hurt, and often hold shame or pain or traumatic memories. There's another group of like a type of parts called our managers. This is according to Richard Swartz' work. I believe, who is like the founder of Parts Work or IFS anyway. There's many, many people who have done parts work and like created their own like sort of offshoots of this, or maybe it was starting to happen simultaneously, as often new ideas that emerge kind of like are um uh in the ethers almost, and they start to like pop up around the same time all over the globe. So anyway, managers is another part of internal family systems, another category of parts of us that are responsible for day-to-day protection and guarding, and they are maybe you could think of them as more self-conscious. They care about how we're perceived. They want to constrain our behavior, control situations and relationships, avoid triggers. So they're like self-protective, it sounds like. Manager behaviors can present as anxiety or depression, or even changes in our personality. And then the third category is firefighters. Now, these ones will swoop in after an exile has been triggered, and their job or their goal is to soothe and distract from overwhelming and painful. feelings, putting out that fire. So they have this immense power, but they tend to lose energy quickly. So that can look like addictive behaviors, suicidality, rage, dissociation, or compulsion. I think that this is just like a really fascinating subject because I think that we're such multifaceted beings and just endlessly intriguing in the way that we um, experience different aspects of ourselves. And it totally resonates with me. It makes sense that we've got all of these parts inside of us that, um, as we recognize them and as we give them a voice and as we allow a dialogue with them and as we accept them without judgment or shame or, um, it sort of helps to quell the war within ourselves and can increase our self-acceptance and just like understanding that we can have all of these parts of ourselves that work sort of together and that they can all be accepted and loved and appreciated and we can understand that they're there for a reason and that yeah, I just think it's um a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. So I'm going to keep going down it in future videos and different things. So I recently invested in a an IFS training through the company Sounds True. So I will definitely be diving deeper into that as I have the time to, because I am in grad school and I'm about to end that soon. End it as in graduate. From clinical psychology master's program, by the way, which is like right up my alley with all of this IFS and parts work, because I get to bring this into the therapy room with my clients too as I explore. So, um, yeah, I just would love to hear your thoughts on parts work and what has been your experience, and like where are you at in that journey? Like, have you been exploring different parts of yourself? Do you recognize, is this like old news to you? And you're like, oh yeah, I've been doing this work for years. Because I had a parts work deck of cards that just sh sort of show like different, all kinds of different uh, iterations of all of those types of parts, the firefighters, the managers, and the exiles. And then there's this underlying sort of premise or belief that the core essence of us is just the calm, peaceful, loving center, and then the parts are just like all like a sort of like constellated around that. And there are no bad parts, right? No Bad Parts, which is also a book by Richard Swartz that um, is probably a very fascinating read. And one more thing I will conclude with is one thing that actually really sparked this too is this video and like a deeper inquiry into parts work. Besides the fact that many of my future colleagues in the psychotherapy world are already using IFS and they're implementing it and seeing amazing, amazing results and transformation with their clients. Um, I was recently made aware of a book called The Others Within Us. And that book is, I'm going to see if I can find the author really quick. I have the book actually pulled up in, okay, so it's by Robert Falconer. Um, Falconer. And so this book was sparked by IFS, and an IFS client's lifelong affliction with an unattached burden, something in her mind that was not part of her, that was not part of her. So this began a decade-long study of the others within us and how they are treated worldwide. So this is about parts work, but it goes deeper than that. It goes to like um sort of darker parts, darker parts work, which I also find very interesting too. And so much of like my study and my work, both for myself personally and with clients, has been sort of like parts work in various ways, but this is just like another layer, another avenue that you can go into. Another really great book that's along those lines of The Others Within Us is it's called, especially if you're suffering from really intense trauma, or know someone that is. It's called The Inner World of Trauma: Archetypal Defenses of the Personal Spirit by Donald Kalsched. This book is super brilliant. It's the exploration of the interior world of dream and fantasy images encountered in therapy with people who have suffered unbearable life experiences. He shows in this book how, in an ironical twist of not physical, psychical life, the very defensive images designed to protect the self from further injury can become malevolent and destructive, resulting in further trauma for the person. So that's another super fascinating read. Here's actually, you can kind of see the book, kind of. It's flashing in and out. But anyway, I will attach those links below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on parts work.